Hello, I'm just back from a 3-day road trip in the Miata, and it was pretty cool, but very tiring. Um, the subject that I want to address, and it's been pressing upon me for a while, I believe that the church is the world, and I think the Bible confirms that, and that the believers are the lively stones, as Peter has mentioned. Because when Jesus said that he will build up the temple in 3 days, he obviously meant that through his death, burial, and resurrection, the temple would thus be built. And so what is the temple but his people? It's us. And so as we understand then that the church is the world, then we don't need to go to a building, a special one, at all. It's ridiculous. We just move in the world freely and embody the Spirit of Christ, not by trying to do it, of course, which is impossible, but just by acting normally, following our instincts and our whims and speaking to whom we will, and treating everybody in a kindly manner. And, that includes the people with the rainbow-coloured hair and the nose rings and all that lot. Because they're still our neighbours, they're in the church, in that measure. Now, you could say that they have errant principles, and I would tend to agree, because they haven't read the Word of God, upon which all principles must stand. This is, that's quite a radical way of speaking, I suppose, but I'm sure many believers will agree with me on that. We have to stand on the rock. There's no other ground worth even mentioning. But all the organizations that have arisen over the years, so it might be the Methodist Church or the Church of England or the Reformed, what's it called, the Orthodox Church, what's it called? That one, the Eastern sort of version of Catholicism, the Catholic Church, of course, the Baptist Church, the Protestant movement, all of these things in the church, they've just been used to place people in bondage, to extract a tithe from them, and to prevent them from understanding the freedom that is truly enshrined within the pages of the Holy Bible. They've just replaced Rome with another organization, and that applies to all organizations, not just the religious church, which has been largely replaced, of course, by the university in our modern society. And the university campus and its institutions form another church. You could call it a church or a congregation. The humanist side, the atheistic side, I suppose, largely. And the same is true of all the Muslim places of worship, their mosques, and the Hindu temples. If you attend a Hindu temple, if you're one of the ladies that prepares the food for the temple and regularly does all the work that they do, they work very hard. They have musicians playing the drums, and they attend the meetings, and they know how to chant in a very pleasant way, I have to say. It's nice to hear, like it's nice to hear hymns, isn't it? But I suppose in the community you would, gain more respect. Perhaps you would be seen as a good Hindu. Whether there are other Hindus that will never grace the doorstep of that building and they're on the street doing something different or being annoying or getting involved in crime, perhaps, or um, living a more debauched lifestyle. I don't know. Or perhaps they're very wealthy men and who consider themselves above the littleness of religion. But they are your brothers, and you can't separate yourself from them by having them outside of the building and you inside of it. When Jesus said, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," that means everybody. That's why those divisions are so harmful. And it's like the political divide, left-right. It's completely pointless because it's just a way of creating friction between people. When you look at those things, you realize that left-wing ideologies embrace some good ideas, and so do right-wing ideologies. They're just invented to put people into groups and have infighting. I mean, how is it ever going to work if 60% of the population want this and 40% want the other? You have a divided kingdom. The kingdom cannot be divided. All must stand behind the king. That's how these things work. Also in earthly kingdoms. I think I did read in an anthropology book, maybe this was just a story, but of a village in an African village, I forget in which part, maybe in the Congo. And the local practice was that when they elected a new chief of the tribe, they wouldn't elect him until everybody had voted yes. And even if one person had not yet voted yes, then the election ceremony was protracted until that person chose to vote yes, I suppose. Maybe he would have felt under some pressure because they wanted everybody to be in agreement. Otherwise, that had to be the starting point, you see. Whereas the world, as it were, I would sometimes say Rome, or the force that is opposed to Jesus Christ, whatever it is, doesn't want that agreement to occur, because it is through disagreement that wickedness can creep in, and deception, and all the things that we have around us in our lives. But it's being revealed now, and the fact of understanding that the church is the world, I think the more people really get it and come out of those dark buildings, they're dark buildings because they're really closed to other people. When you get into those organizations, there is like an electric fence around your thought. There are certain things that you can't really say or do without crossing the boundaries of acceptable behavior. You will be seen as challenging the authority under which you are placed. So there's a boundary, and the people within the organization pretend they can't see it, largely because it's slightly humiliating to be kept in a pen, but it's there. And if you come to an understanding and start trying to test that boundary, you will understand what I'm talking about. And you will be ostracized. And probably, I don't know whether to say punished, but you won't be given any advantages because you'll be coming into conflict actually directly with other people. And, men in particular, we are very competitive with one another. It's a fact of our nature. And if you enter a competition without holding, a winning hand in that scenario, you will be brought down because of it. Can't be challenging authority if you don't have, if you're not a higher authority. But you challenge, it's not you that's challenging, I would say. It is the Spirit of the living God. Because if you're speaking the truth and you're standing on the Word of God, then it's not really you, is it? You're just copying it from what you've read and believed. So I would say it would be a lot to think that, a man alone in his workshop can have certain thoughts. They're given, aren't they? They must be. God bless this morning.